Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Osterville Village Association. And first on the agenda, and everyone has a copy of the agenda, is the secretary's report. Do we have any questions on that? Seeing none, can I get a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Secretary's report is approved. Cal,
Thank you.
good job. Cal, secretary.
Okay, in our checking account, we have $7,803.55. No checks outstanding. In our Robert Smith fund, that's a fund that we use for all the donations. We have $17,549.31. And in our Robert Smith fund, which is our savings account, money market fund, $2,923.11. All told, $28,000, around $28,000. No checks or anything owed outstanding.
Great, thanks, Al. Any questions on the treasurer's report? Get a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Treasurer's report is approved. Cindy, OBPA report.
Okay, the nominating committee has approved the following slate of officers to be voted in at the annual breakfast meeting on June 3rd, 2025. Chairman Cindy Cotton of the Osterville Library replaces Gail Nightingale, who is stepping down as chairman but will remain on the steering committee. Vice Chairman Beth Supernaut of 5 Bays Beachville Crisp. Secretary Martina Mell of Beacon Gardens, replacing Carol Elliott of Beacon Gardens, who is resigning. Treasurer Pat Grafton of Rockland Trust. Also appointed is Martina Mell to the steering committee to fill Carol Elliott's term. Our spring cocktail party will be held in May at the chat room, a date to be announced, and is being sponsored by EJ Jackstimer Builder and Jackstimer Landscaping. Invitations will be sent out. Plans are being finalized for our spring and summer sidewalk sale on Saturday, June 7th. The Osterville Village Directory and calendar of 2025 events will be sent to the printer soon and should be available by the end of the month. And we received a $500 grant from the Town Tourism Fund towards this. Our next steering committee is April 15th, and we will finalize plans for our annual meeting, which is on June 3rd at the Wiano Club. Town Manager Mark Ells will be the guest speaker at the meeting, which will also include our election of officers and the announcement of the OVA/OVPA scholarship winner. Notices will be sent out along with proxy votes for the election of officers for those who are unable to attend. Plans are being made for Village Day on Saturday, July 19th. We have received a parade permit from the town. The theme of the parade is Garden Party, respectfully submitted by Gail Nightingale, Chairman of the BPA.
Thank you, Cindy. Great job with that. Any questions for Cindy? Okay, John.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. John, Town Council's report.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Since we met last time, the Article 97 protections for Dowsel's Beach has been passed and it is in effect right now. The filing with the town government and the state has not happened yet, but it is in effect. So that was a big thing. We had people come out. I appreciate everybody who came out to help on that one and wrote letters to the town council. Accelerate, what do they call ADUs, dwelling units, ADU, accessory dwelling units discussion will be this coming Thursday. It will be a discussion, not a workshop. And we had some amendments to that ADU issue that were brought forward by the town attorney, and some are very complicated, and we're still trying to figure out what the meanings of some of them are. So we're going to be arguing that out or discussing that, but no vote will be taken. So ADUs are approved by the state to be able to put on a property that has the setbacks and enough sewage or septic for those units. And And they will be hooked up into the sewers when they come by as anything else. But the ADUs are still, have some issues about how many people can be in one. Right now, it's a 900 square foot limit. They want to actually increase that to a larger, to like 1,200 square feet. But those are things we're going to be discussing, so keep an eye on that. Accessory dwelling units. Pete was nice enough to print this out. This is the schedule for the local comprehensive meetings that are coming to the community. They have finished their report, and they're bringing that finished report to different locations throughout the town. The first one will be Tuesday, April 15th at 6 p.m. at the West Barnstable Community Building. Then there will be one on Wednesday, April 30th at 6 p.m. Both of these are 6 at Liberty Hall in Marston's Mills. Then the one going to be here in Osterville is May 5th at 6 p.m. at the Osterville Library right here. The final meeting will be held at the Barnstable High School Performing Arts Center on Thursday, May 8th at 6 p.m. It's probably best that anybody who wants to go to these meetings to go as many as they can, because there'll be different views from different communities on the LCP, and the LCP has a number of issues that are controversial in certain respects as to what are our plans for the growth of our villages in the future. So it's probably best to get as familiar as possible. And that will come up at some point for the town council, so it's good that we have a discussion. We have 2 ad hoc subcommittees that were put into effect in January that have come to a close. One is the housing, how to increase affordable housing in the town. That was just wrapped up with recommendations that will come from the chair of that committee to the council in the next month or so. And then also the zoning and regulatory and regulatory agreement committee subcommittee has also finished their work. Both of those will be brought forward. Most of what's come out is I've seen them both and then been on both committees. They're pretty well put together. And one controversial, I think, issue that we may want to discuss and have people keep an eye on is it's called the transfer tax, and they're proposing that that properties that sell over a certain value, we don't know what that value is, that there will be a transfer tax when that property is sold to a new owner. Okay, and that transfer tax would be 1%, 2%, or whatever, and they want to earmark that for affordable housing. One of the reasons why I think that's a little bit concerning right now is that we have, most of us has just got our tax bills for the property taxes. They went up, I think, 18% this year. It's very large. We also are looking at possible 2.5 overrides for some of the sewer that's coming through. Recently, we understood that we just heard from the state that one of the funds that we count on, we've been counting on for our sewage projects as they go forward, is a fund that you can apply for it every year. That gives you $50 million in benefits to do that, going towards that. I understand they just cut that down by half. Okay, and those numbers, by cutting it in half, are going to put some of our sewer plans at risk, because we're not going to be able to afford it at some point. So that's, I don't know if that we're actually checking to see if that is actually been approved or not, or they're still talking about it. So that's something to keep an eye on. The housing production plan that we were talking about that also had some implications for Osterville, which were density and height of buildings, where multifamily by right units may be built within a half mile of the village center. Well, that was rejected by the town council and sent back to the planning department to rework it. So that'll be coming around, and there'll be meetings about that coming forward in the next few months. So keep an eye on that also, because that affects what's going to happen here as far as density and building in town that might be finished upon us. And that's all I have at this point. Any questions?
I checked it on the housing, on the state revolving loan fund. That the last I heard, which was a couple of weeks ago, was still in a draft form. And that's what you believe too. There's the final final document hasn't been released yet. Is that the case?
That's what I understand. And I'm glad you had
Yeah.
the particulars on that, Hector. Hector's with the financial advisory committee for the town of Barnstable.
Right.
So a lot of that will go through him. And, I just haven't heard from final.
Yeah, I'll ask Mark,
Yeah, and I understand that the town manager and a number of other, interested parties have, written, to their concerns about that for the state. That will affect how far we go with our sewer and what ability he has to pay for that.
right. There's, it's nowhere near being passed, but there's talk in Washington of removing the tax exemption for municipal bonds. And if that's the case, Barnstable, most of the financing it will do for the sewer will be in the bond market. Barnstable is rated AAA, but the assumed financing rate that we would get over the next couple of years is 4%. If they do remove the exemption, the tax exemption for municipal bonds, that 4% would likely be more like 6 or 7%. That will also alter the town's costs. But again, that's only talk yet. The administration hasn't proposed anything official yet.
Thank you, Hector. Appreciate it.
And Pete, can I just say on the
Sure.
LCP, we all sort of complimented Bruce, on the content of a communication about that. I just want to do it again, because I think that when you look through the public comment that was actually submitted, it was very consistent with the kinds of things that we've heard in this room. So I think, the effort, and I know Pete, you went and spoke at one of I think it was the housing production planning. I think those efforts to just kind of communicate are kind of paying off in terms of the actual, ultimate comment that's going into it.
Right.
So we should just sort of stay on course there.
I will add to that also, the town council president actually mentioned that by name. He took that, the letter you wrote him, he read it a couple of times and thought it was wonderfully done. And, he took that into consideration. So he did a good job. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for saying that. It was basically a letter that I wrote that combined everyone's thoughts and feelings that I've heard, and a lot of ideas that we've shared as a board, and just kind of condensed it into a form that I thought and hoped that members of the town council had sent it to read. And I actually received replies from most of them, which is great, considering the volume of emails that we're getting. So, so, I mean, by all means, we're happy to do that again.
I will also say, all the communications I get from citizens, I read them all. And I think most counselors do the same. We just don't answer them all. Well, I answer many of them, but not all of them. And, depending on what the content and that kind of stuff is. So be sure if you ever write to the town council, they are read. And it's important that those are kept track of and they possibly sway some votes, so it's important.
And then Pete, just one thing, John, when you talked about the Article 97, I don't think you mentioned where that would apply, just for folks who might be watching who aren't familiar.
That is what's known as the Wiano landing of the baby beach, which is drive down the end of Wiano, don't take a right on Stevens, drive right into the ocean. That property there where the stanchions are there, and then the little grass area and the benches, and then the little beach there and the stairs. That's what's called as well. It's known here as Baby Beach, but that's what is now been put under Article 97 protections, just like Dowson's Beach has been put on those protections. One of the main reasons is because that was named by one of the wind developers as one of the alternative landing spots. So we've come out as a town council against landing at Dowson's Beach. And that also includes now the other section there. As for moving forward with the wind, I think if Suzanne was here, it'd be better half earlier. But a lot of it seems to be on hold right now. In fact, the state and the transmission developers, like, Enstar or whatever what's the other ones?
Avangrid,
Avangrid,
no,
no,
Eversource.
Eversource, that would be building the substations, have not come to an agreement on the contract. And that was supposed to be done by, early this month, and it's been put off until August. So I think there's, what's happening in the national basis is really having a significant effect on this. So we'll see. I'm not sure there'll be something better there. John?
Can Avangrid sell off their rights to another company to try to move forward?
I believe they can. Does anybody else have any?
No, they have, if they have, they haven't made it public.
But can they?
Sorry?
But can they?
Yes,
And then everything would start all over.
Right,
yeah.
that's what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was asked today by somebody about is the contract or the agreements we made for easements in some of these properties, is that still in effect now that this has been pushed forward? I don't know the correct answer. I believe the lawyer, the town lawyer addressed this. I think there is no, it's open and stays open.
No, I think.
At this point, there wasn't anything written in the contract, from what I understand. I may be wrong about this. That said, if it's not performed by this date, then this agreements are null and
Now,
void.
could the federal funding cuts possibly affect the funding for these?
I certainly believe so, yeah.
So that could
Yeah.
kind of detail it even longer
Yeah.
or squash it completely.
And there's also talk by one development that's not here, that they're putting it off for 4 years, seeing what the next elections are going to do for that. So this may be something that Avangrid may do. So I've got the feeling that, well, I don't know what Avangrid is thinking, but I think many people in the state might be thinking that same thing, to wait it out and see what happens at the next election. Go ahead.
I was at that meeting and I have a question about the green communities. It was that group that they all got up and spoke about it. Is that something that there will be more talk about? Like I was wondering, they said that a few communities, a few towns or cities that had joined up had dropped out, but they didn't really say why. And I was just wondering, like, what the backside of that is. That was all positive for it, but there was no, will that be addressed again in the future? Or, I mean, is that something that the town is thinking of doing?
I've not heard any follow-up on that at this point on the green communities.
Okay.
It's very early in any kind of, we haven't even discussed it, and I don't see that coming forward unless they bring it back up. Everything can be brought up by any group, and we'll have to look at it again, and also have to look seriously at what it includes, what it entails, and what it expects of our town, and what it requires us to do, like anything else. We're also looking at the the name for it. It's the I'll think of it later. I'll get back. But there's another. It's the.
Stretch codes?
No, seasonal communities,
Oh, God, yes.
seasonal communities, and that's another thing they're pushing, but there's some zoning issues that they would require us to enact that. At this early point, I see that being problematic.
Thank you, John. Thanks for everything you do as far as the time you have to put in for the committees and for going to meetings. Thanks for representing us. And again, I think everyone here appreciates it.
Happy to do it. Thanks. Yeah.
And Bruce, thank you for that letter. That helped a lot. And to get all the council to respond to that's doesn't happen. Thank you, John. Anyone else for questions for John? Okay, moving on, old business, we covered most of this, on the LCP. Again, I just urge everyone, this will be announced again to attend the May 5th, meeting here at 6 o'clock. And question I got, John, I'm sorry, on the Piano Beach landing, you covered that. Does that have to go to the state or like how does it get recorded or how?
It gets recorded as a. Now, I don't know what it's called, maybe a deed or whatever, I'm not sure what it's called, but it gets recorded in the courthouse. And I don't know if it goes also by the state, court system. But anyway, they are, the town Morosa, the, assistant town attorney, I asked him yesterday where that stood, he said, first thing, it's, right, because we voted, it's in effect right now. But doing the filing, he's gonna work on that next week and tell me when it's filed.
Thank you. And last on all business, Bruce, you also know about the Roberts.
All right, well, we have a. Last week, yeah. So, Bill is online with us, but, let me just explain a little bit about, what this is all about. At the end of, one OBA meeting, Bill, came up to me and said, gee, you know, we have all these funds in the Robert Smith Fund and, you know, it's not really an active fund. The last significant support that was administered from the Robert Smith Fund was a large one with the post office, the old post office from Riano was moved to the Osterville Historical Society. And I think, you know, we ended up granting something like $7,000. 8,000, which was a big number back then. And you know, Bill said, gee, it's a shame that this fund was intended. And I don't want to put words in Bill's mouth because he's over our shoulder here, but it's a shame that fund isn't used as much as, you know, Bob Smith probably would like. And so we started talking about it. And he said, well, you know, Bruce, you know, can you work with me on a committee to study this? And so Bill and I, over the past few months, have been exchanging emails, trying to come up with some type of working draft that a subcommittee could use as a guideline. And so I handed something out tonight. I do have a few extra copies because not many councilors a year. It's just a work in progress, but you're welcome to grab one at the end. And we did create a subcommittee to do this, but I couldn't find where I wrote down who was supposed to be on it. But from my memory, it was Bill, Bruce, Pete, Al as treasurer, of course, Suzanne and Hector. Did I volunteer you? I don't know. And if you're missing anyone, I apologize. But the idea was to basically review the original Smith Fund guidelines and the purpose of it. And look at the past and present beneficiaries examples and discuss how we might increase the use of the fund. Because if you've been coming to OBA meetings as long as Pete, John, and Al and I have, you know, that number doesn't really change that much. You know, when Al reads in the treasurer's report, there's $20,000 in the Robert Smith Fund. It's pretty much consistent, you know, year after year after year. And so there are some things that we'd like to accomplish. And one is we have the OBA treasury and we have the Smith Fund. And we think that as a group of directors, for the knowledge of the general knowledge of the village, we should have a better grasp on what fund is used for what purpose. There are several people that I've talked to among the directors here, and some of us aren't really sure ourselves. So we figure if we can figure that part out, that would be really helpful. So we would try to establish, you know, what expenditures would come out of the treasury. We said, for example, mailings, or, you know, if we wanted to create any posters or banners about any particular village issues, you know, we could do that. Maybe there are other things too. And then the Smith Fund, you know, we have our traditional support for the Osterville Village Library, of course, and then Osterville Historical Society. And we've had OBPA expenditures come from the general treasury and also from the Smith Fund. So we think it would be a good idea to kind of clarify that. And so the goal is basically, to keep the OBA members and the public better informed of what the Smith Fund is doing and how it's used in an effort to encourage further support. So I just wrote a general summary here that I'm going to read to you to give you an idea of what we're thinking. So as most directors are aware, since the establishment of the Smith Fund, use of it has been sporadic with a healthy balance reported at each meeting for many years. One could argue that it's been somewhat dormant and therefore not really being used to its capability. We believe the best way to continue to honor Robert Smith is to really put the fund named in his honor to work. Our overall goal is to inject new energy into the fund by utilizing it more often to do quote unquote good, while also informing the public of what exactly has been done for who or what and why. This should create interest so the community is more aware that the fund exists and in turn wants to support it. There is no intent to be cavalier in the use of the fund, but rather attempt to amplify its active use. Done properly, this will with time increase awareness with the long-term goal of eventually making a larger impact for quote unquote good all residents can be proud of in the future. So we reviewed, how we would discuss Robert Smith. I looked at the descriptions on the OBA website and we put them in here so that maybe we can consider editing it down. And the one thing that we do every year is we send out an OBA mailing, for a membership mail. And the idea is that we would put some definition of the Smith Fund in there and explain maybe some of the expenses that we have, used it for in the past and the beneficiaries and the results of that. So that people are kind of aware that this fund exists and the good that it's doing. So the idea would be to establish guidelines for both funds and then differentiate between the OBA Treasury and the Smith Fund, so we all know, what each is for. And among the current beneficiaries was the Armstrong Kelly Park. And now that's part of the trustees of reservations, like most of you know, which isn't really an Osterville entity. So we would need to discuss, like, how do we go about that? Because if they ask us for support from the Smith Fund, for example, how do we know that those funds are going to benefit the local park versus, another park off Cape? So, and then these are all things that, we need to brainstorm about. And then, obviously, we want to continue to help the OBPA, but we want to know, which fund should that come out of? Is it the Smith Fund or is it, the Treasury? And the idea is that we would cultivate support for it by, making it more visible, and then maybe even broadening the scope of the fund so it could reach more beneficiaries. And that would include, maybe identifying other opportunities to use it, which may require expanding the view of an entity beyond a nonprofit. And we gave some examples like, suppose a local village family with 6 kids' house burns down, and they're in desperate need of help. They are not a nonprofit technically, but if one of their neighbors came to the OBA and was aware this fund existed, maybe we could review and vote to help that family out of that fund, that type of thing. And in no way are we trying to take away from the original nonprofits. All those would remain the same. The goal is not to take away, but rather expand, the impact and the outlook, and the purpose. The OBA college scholarships would still remain the same after an application process. And any formal requests for funding, not only would we encourage, the existing relationships, but we would also encourage recommendation for awards from the community via the directors. For example, maybe we could set up something on the website where, one of you heard of, a family that, has a child that's disabled who's trying to buy a new wheelchair. And do you think that, that fund could be used, for that? And obviously, not all expense amounts would be the same. We would discuss and review and see, what would be viable for each particular situation. And then we would qualify it by saying, to be eligible, the beneficiary must be an Osterville resident or entity, because obviously we're the OBA. The award must meet all aspects of ethical standards relative to doing good, quote unquote, and not be used for professional or political gain or purposes. In other words, we're not here to subsidize businesses or support particular candidates. So those types of opportunities would qualify. And we'd have to set our own parameters as to how payments would be made to make sure they're going directly to the individual or the group in need. In other words, we're not looking to, subsidize a fake GoFundMe page or anything like that. In theory, the beneficiary would be, an entity or a family or maybe a fledgling nonprofit organization is trying to get started that someone here at this meeting knows and brings to our attention so that, we all have this feel good moment where we're able to come up with, say, $500 or whatever the number is to help them, in their time of need. You may say, well, people can do that, individually, but here we are as a group, we have this tremendous fund in someone's honor that's basically been sitting, gathering mothballs all this time. And if we start using it, we will increase awareness of it, and therefore hopefully gather more support and funding for it, so that we build from whatever the number of the day was from Al, and it grows and grows until it becomes maybe more of a thing, which would be a great way to honor Bob Smith, who was known as the quote unquote mayor of Boston. And the last thing we have on here, and this is just a draft document. All awards requests would be reviewed and approved by OBA directors, either by the full board or by a selected subcommittee. So the idea is simple. And Bill, I don't know if you want to add anything, but it's to do good with a fund that was always intended to do good.
The last thing you said, I think is very important. Over the years, this started was a concept that we came up with back when Bob passed away. And at the bottom of the bill, we always put a line there, and sometimes encourage it and sometimes not, to also give a donation. And we could be much more clever about that annually. Generally, that has raised about $6,000 a year. And then historically, we had our 3 nonprofits that would write and request a $2,000 donation in order to support that, which is fine, and it worked well. So we generally got about $6,000 a year, and things stayed about $4,000 to $6,000, and then everything got a little bit quiet on the front. But my concept is I would like our organization to become and to be known is that we pass things forward. We are helpful for those that are in need, and we could have some consultants to our committee that would bring us ideas. For example, Cindy, with her knowledge of the community, could be a consultant to it and let us know where there are. In other words, we could have outreach I've even considered to have 2 to 3 clergy as consultants that would know where there are problems in our community. I follow the Centerville Association mainly because at the Craigville Beach Club, presidents asked me to monitor that group. And it's not infrequent that the Centerville, you can learn a lot by watching these other groups that do good things like we do good things. And the Centerville group, a month ago, had 3 items of the 9. One was the need for a child in schooling. The other was for a senior citizen. And the third one was for an adult. And so the one difference between their group and our group is that they have they don't have an OBPA, so they have. We're very fortunate to have the OBPA. They're fortunate because that group is rolled into their group, and therefore they have the momentum of the merchants as well as the citizens group under one roof. So I would just like for us to become known, especially I would like for us to do good things. And that's what the theme that I bring to this is what good things can we pass forward and to have our village association known in part, only in part, that we do good things. And that has not been really in our creed in the last decade and a half. We do all kinds of wonderful things for the community, but this aspect of aiding, I would like to see us broaden and use the Robert Smith Fund to bring that character to our group. So that's my perspective. So Bruce, you did a nice job at outlining it. Thank you.
So one thing that we would, have to look at is, do we want to incorporate that into bylaws, or is that necessary, or whatever? So there are a lot of different aspects of this that we kind of need to review as a committee or as a whole, as you prefer, but the idea of the subcommittee would be to work on the definitions of each fund, establish what they're for, look at past beneficiaries, and then start considering ways where we could put this fund to work and really turn it into something that, that we would all feel good about. And so that's, in general, that's the goal. And Bill said, quote unquote, to make the world a better place. One small village, and these trying times, maybe we can do some good that, people will start to notice and want to help us support. And it's not designed or intended to replace any of our individual family efforts, but rather, the Osterville Village Association has strength in numbers. So the idea would be combined, would be, using these funds for the common good.
Bring the community back to the community.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, hopefully helping people or entities that so that's where we are with that. And the next step would be to take this document and start, reviewing it as a committee and seeing if we can't, come up with some definitions and figure out for ourselves what funds are supposed, what goes to the treasury and what goes to the Smith Fund, and go from there. But that's the goal.
Great job, Bruce. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Bruce,
Thank you, Bill.
can I just
Thank
ask,
you.
I think putting some PR around that is terrific. On the little OVA membership card, there's a line and it says the Bill Smith Fund, but
Yeah.
having some sort of, definition around that, it could encourage people to donate even more. So
Right, so that's in here. We wanted to
that's
kind
great.
of outline Bob's biography and
Yeah.
then, talk about what we've done in the past few years, bring some attention to it. So that people kind of become aware. of
That's
it.
terrific.
Yeah.
But just a thought, because the OBPA has a seat on this board, I believe automatically in the bylaws, which I should know, but I don't.
Yes, it's true.
I'm wondering if it would be helpful because the OBPA does so much here and is a beneficiary of that fund for the great events. Whether the OBPA representative to the OVA board should have like at least an ex officio or some kind of connection to this subcommittee.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I mean,
It's easy for me to volunteer some of it. It just seems like
are you being volunteered, Cindy? Well, but,
somebody from.
you know, we need, yeah, absolutely. We were looking for volunteers for that committee because, you know, this is a new thing for us. So we're just trying to put something together, to get started. So that's what this document was.
Yes, good, good.
Great job, Bruce. Excellent.
And Bill,
To be continued, no, that's excellent.
Do we need to vote to form a committee?
I think we already did that.
Yeah,
Oh, good, done.
thank you, please. New business, Cindy, you can maybe mention this also. Village cleanup day to be held on April 19th. Cindy's organizing this. Do you wanna?
Well, we're just doing it before Earth Day. It's gonna be after the Easter egg hunt here. Some of the kids, this is a time of year where they all need a lot of community time, and South County Road, a lot of the roads are kind of messy now, so we're just gonna organize some people, kids, hopefully some adults, and pick up trash along the roads here to kind of get things spruced up for the summer. So if anybody wants to help or come by, it's gonna be starting at 10 o'clock to just a couple hours and on the Saturday. And as I say, if any kids need community time that you know of, it's a good opportunity.
They'll have routes mapped out as far as.
Yeah.
Where.
Yeah, I know South County around the village, just down around like an octopus around here.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. One last thing on, it's actually old business, there's another calm water commissioner meeting tomorrow night at the fire station. And I think it's for the 5th time in a row that Evergreen is not gonna be there. Didn't really get any updates, so I guess that's good news because they've got really nothing to say at this point, but if that changes at all, I'll let you know, first, going forward.
Peter, is that at the firehouse?
Yes, it's still,
6 p.m.?
yes, that's correct, sorry, yes. Yeah, and again, there's been no activity at all from the Evergreen, and we're supposedly negotiating contracts with them regarding Centerville, and that's basically on hold right now, as John was saying with some of these other projects, so. Again, we'll know more, probably know more next month. But I'll keep you updated on that. And public comment.
I have a public comment. I just want to do another little plug that I did before for that website called barnesvillewatchnews.com, which is an AI supported summary of all the town meetings. So readership is growing and sharing is growing. So I just wanted to do another little plug.
What's it called again?
barnesvillewatchnews.com. I just take the sort of YouTubes of the town meetings, feed them into AI to get a quick sum of hours, and then supplement that a little bit with some watching. It's just hard to stay on top of everything, so it's kind of an easy way.
Can you say that one more time?
Oh yeah, it's called barnesvillewatchnews.com. And if you can either go to the site. I have 3 followers on Facebook. Everyone's welcome to join. But there's no comment because the point is just to get objective news out. It's not to banter. And then there's once a week or so, there's an email that aggregates the summaries. If anyone would rather just get that email push. So anyway, tell your friends and family.
Basically, any meeting that's held, town meeting, you can go click on that meeting and you can see just a short summary of what happened during that meeting.
Yeah.
Then you can click on and watch it also. But AI narrows it down, so it makes it very quick to see what happened.
How about stop signs? Have you heard anything?
Not anything about that.
Crosswalks or?
So,
Oh, the stop signs, crosswalks, before we have a busy summer season in here. I know it's not gonna happen this year, it's probably not gonna happen the year after that, but I'm just saying.
I'll have
Did the
to
paper
follow
get
up.
shoved underneath the
Griffin
door yet?
Bowden, the town engineer, and he's working on that, and we have 4 speed bumps coming, and I don't know about the stop signs at this point. But I'll ask him and get back to you.
Yeah, at least a stop sign at the village, old village store, just to slow them down when they get into town.
I agree, but there seems to be, I can't remember exactly what the pushback was on that one, but I think they're going to put a speed bump right there, very close to that. So
Want to put a stop sign until the speed bump gets there?
that would be great, but I think it's, you know how those things, it takes
Yeah.
a long time to study it. They put it in, there's a bunch of accidents, who's at fault, so I will check and get back to you.
Well, it is frustrating, John, we've been through this so many times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I look out that window. When I'm
Oh,
working,
to see them flying through the village.
No, it's worse than it ever has been.
it
Yeah.
happens.
Really townwide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so, John, you,
I'll follow up.
that definitely is the biggest issue around here.
Weren't they approved for the funding? And there was stuff.
Yeah, and they're doing their whatever work they do, yeah, and yeah.
Yeah, there's drainage issues, there's a lot to it, so they say. Yeah. But it is in the works, it's just the timetable is not gonna be this year.
What is the timetable anyway? 5 years?
26, right?
In a couple of years.
I mean, I don't know.
Is there any chance
Not
of getting a little more police presence?
You call the police and what they do is they have a list. And they move around in different villages. So we got it last year at one time during the summer.
Right.
It was early August, I believe. And then they'll go to the next spot, next spot, next spot, next spot. So I'll see what we can do also this summer to have us on this.
Do you mean the signs? The
No, I'm
slow-
talking about the police actually pulling people over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Enforcement.
Some of those landscape trucks that come up.
Yeah.
You know,
Not even
Avenue,
landscape trucks.
right,
No, they don't even slow down.
don't even slow down.
How about one of those the speeding signs that say, it's 20, maybe.
Just call the police department. We can get it out in about 2 weeks.
Well, those are very helpful, because when you see one of those, you start slowing down, and I.
You might, but they don't.
Well, my name's Susan and I work over I'm the manager at J. McLaughlin, and I look out all the time, and I can't, it's the construction workers, it seems, well, not to go down on the bus.
It's everybody.
There is, it better go on.
Friday afternoon.
So maybe one of those slow down, you're going 50 and then you're supposed to be going 15, because they do move those around.
Yeah.
Just an idea.
Can they pull information from those, like an average speed at the end of the
Yes,
day?
they can,
They can.
but they can't issue tickets legally.
Right.
Yeah, but at least they'll know that we're not like
Right,
just making this all up.
No, they do. The police officer who was on the, no, what's his name? Barry?
Here,
I talked to him a few times.
So I went to a meeting in Center Hill Police Department, and those machines actually collect a lot of data. And they can, from that, the police then come back and look at the times of the speeding, and they do a, speed enforcement trap based on the data. So it is, even though it doesn't seem to do anything in real time, because sometimes kids can try to speed up, 60, they're collecting data, so they know when they're enforcing things, so it's available to you.
So, just going to a budget item, ultimately, I think I'm right about this, but I could be wrong. When the town started out doing like a survey of what people care about in the LCP process, road safety was like super top of the list across town because it's gotten so cuckoo everywhere. I'm wondering if that would justify an investment in more of those signs in the upcoming budget.
Good point.
You know what I mean? Because it really does seem to be a pressing cross-town priority.
Well, I know when they put an empty cruiser right out in front on Leano, everyone stops for that stop sign.
Yeah,
And that cruiser goes away,
yeah.
Whether he's getting a drink at.
We just sit there for 6, 8 hours, and, like, sometimes you just, I think I'll go to the back of the store, I don't wanna see what's going on.
Right. Amazing.
It's a chronic problem
Yeah.
throughout the town.
Yeah.
And getting resources from one village to another, everybody's asking for it.
Yeah.
So I'll put us on again in that list for this summer and see what we can do. And we talk about maybe getting some more funding for it.
But even the police presence, I mean, to me, there isn't much police presence in this village.
No.
Oh, right. Oh.
When I had a drug problem at the house next to me, that was when it was an Airbnb, so it was, needles on the ground when I walked the dog and that kind of stuff. I actually went over to the police department and said, could you just kind of be a little bit more visible here? Cause there's like real things going. And, they told me at the time there was one officer that covered both Osterville and Centerville, which is really a lot of geography.
Yeah.
Now, if you read Hyannis News, you understand why they're in Hyannis.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't want to pull those resources either, but
Like, I'm sure they're shorthanded like everybody else.
yeah.
Yeah, in fact, they are. They're having trouble recruiting police officers.
Right.
Yeah.
Firemen, I was the last time you saw it,
Yeah.
looking for firemen.
Exactly. Surprising.
That's good.
Where are the speed bumps going?
I don't know exactly, but I believe there's one going to be right in the middle of the village, probably by the crosswalk. I believe there's gonna be one coming from the north through the village, near the crosswalk, that's near Joan Peters area right in there.
Yeah.
Hopefully to slow people down. I think there'll be one, I think there's one gonna be at the top of Parker Road. So the top means from the country store down. And I believe the other one will be on the other side of the village coming in.
Where did you say that?
Yeah, by Wicked, that's.
Probably by Wickens here. And I really believe the stop sign, but that didn't go over very good with the town for whatever reason. It must be something about they survey the roads and they really have to be planned. And you can't just plop them down. I wish they could, but
With the speed bumps though.
Yeah.
Isn't there a lot of signage prior to, you're about to hit a
Yes.
speed bump, that
Flashing
might
lights, yeah.
help quite a bit.
yeah,
Slow people down in all those vicinities.
yeah, I think so too. And they'll be just say a bump sign. And then it's gonna be, we ask for the ones that are low.
It's a raised crosswalk.
Yeah. Because
That might be a raised
crosswalk.
crosswalk in the middle of the road.
They work well in Knoxville Village.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
The Boston ones, the Marston's Mill one, to me, seem to work really well. They're village setup, but
Even Katuitt, the one by the post office.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know, those are.
I think we need about, instead of 4, we need about 15,
Oh,
but we'll see. They're very expensive from what I understand.
Take what we.
And it would be nice having on approaches from the cut to the village and then from the lights up there at 28 and coming into the village, starting maybe somewhere near the mobile station.
could you have any kind of outreach, from the committee to local contractors that are sometimes not to pick on some of the violators, but a lot of the trucks you see flying around, say, hey, could you educate your drivers, educate your people about the speed?
I think that's actually happened.
It's happened, but some of them, they go over the bridge every day. They're not from around here.
Yeah, so.
I have something to say about the police. Gail has always done a very nice job at the breakfast meetings of having the annually, at the annual meeting, have the fire department, rescue squad, and I believe the police department be there, and it goes over very nicely. Again, relative to the Centerville Village Association, I was watching them one night because of the Zoom. They fortunately during the COVID, they Zoomed their meetings. And they had the chief of police there. He sat right next to the president at the desk. And man, it was impressive. That police officer was part of their association. And and they talked to him and related with him. And I think it always has interested me, and I've kind of held back in saying anything. I really think in this day and age, where law and order being so important in to honor people in blue, I really think at one of our very significant meetings, we should have the chief of police sitting at the table next to the president and address us, don't let him have him a little bit deep into the meeting, so he's there and gives us some, I guess maybe it may be a she at this point. Um, and if it is, that person did, when she was acting, she talked to the Osterville Men's Club and was most impressive. So I would like to suggest and consider OVA having having the chief of police at one of our significant meetings when we would have more of an audience than we generally do at this new 6 o'clock meeting time. So I'd like you to consider that for the future.
Great idea, Bill. Thank you.
The current police chief is named Jean Chalice. Her name is Jean Chalice.
She's a very, very impressive individual.
She is. Yep.
I have one question. Again, like I said, my name is Susan. I'm the manager at James McLaughlin. And I'm not sure, but I was wondering who runs the Osterville Village, website, Instagram. I don't know if it's this group or if it's, I don't know who runs it. Cause I'd like to post some things on it more than, you know, welcoming in people to shop and different things that we have.
I think,
Is it Cindy?
no, not me.
I
I'm
mean,
not
not
doing
everybody
it. I
around
think,
you.
what's,
Jennifer?
yes,
Yeah,
I couldn't
Jennifer.
think of her name. I think it's Jennifer. But all that's hopefully gonna change soon.
Yeah.
Okay, cause I just need to, you know, I see other things being posted and I just wanna, and I also wanna thought it was this board, to thank them for the things that have been posted beyond me not knowing it's being posted, but just as a manager, I have to know what's being posted. So I just wanna get in contact with that person, so maybe it's a different meeting, which is great, but thank you for everything that you're doing in the town, it's awesome, I've been here 3 years, and it's a lovely town to work in, and, I love it, thank you.
Thank you.
Who is Jennifer?
Jennifer Williams.
Jennifer Williams.
Little June.
Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, next meeting date is May 6th, 6 o'clock here. And make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.